With just a day to go until you have your say on the future of the Eighth Amendment and Ireland's abortion laws, we'll have campaigners and politicians and the public here in studio debating the issues ahead of your all-important vote on Friday. Welcome to the Pat Kenny Show Referendum Special.
I'm In 2 days' time, we'll have an important opportunity to right a wrong in our Constitution. The Eighth Amendment undermines Irish women's health and rights and prevents doctors from providing full healthcare for their patients. I wasn't always in favour of repealing the Eighth. I thought this was a black and white issue, but my opinion has changed. The Eighth Amendment doesn't stop abortion, merely exports it to another country, leaving behind a culture of unregulated, dangerous situations here at home. Whether you've been diagnosed with a fatal fetal abnormality or been a victim of rape, you cannot have a fully informed conversation with your doctor. Dr. Rona Mahoney is Master of the National Maternity Hospital, Holles Street, and sees the complications the Eighth Amendment is creating for medical professionals here in Ireland.
We are waiting for a woman to be very seriously at risk of dying before we can intervene. And this to me is just unacceptable, because what is this substantial? How do I define it medically? 50%, 80%, 10%. And you know, this makes it very difficult, clinicians, because you are also making that decision in the shadow of a custodial sentence of 14 years in prison, not just for yourself, but for your patient as well. So if you get it wrong and she wasn't dying enough, you could potentially find yourself and your patient in jail. But if you get it really wrong, your patient may be dead.
The complexities of pregnancy shouldn't be decided by 5 lines in the Constitution, but should be decided by a medical professional. I'll be voting yes, because it's time to do the right thing for Irish women.
The government's abortion proposal is extreme. For many, even those who favour abortion in some cases, it just goes too far. In Britain, when they introduced abortion, they didn't know that a baby's heart starts to beat at 22 days. They didn't know the pain and suffering abortion would cause so many women, or that the majority of children with Down syndrome would never get the chance to be born. For every 4 babies that are born, 1 is aborted. On Friday, we cannot say we didn't know. In Ireland, we have a chance to be truly progressive and refuse to pit mother against baby, and offer practical and positive alternatives to abortion. The decision you face on Friday is whether you want your taxes to fund abortions for any reason up to 12 weeks. Dr. Trevor Hayes is a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist. Has the Eighth Amendment ever impacted you negatively as a doctor?
Abortion is not healthcare. Abortion ends lives. I have never hesitated or procrastinated on saving a woman or protecting her health because of the Eighth Amendment. At 2 o'clock in the morning, if I'm out in a clinical fire, whether it be hemorrhage or sepsis, I'm not thinking about the Eighth Amendment. I'm thinking about resuscitating the woman and hopefully delivering a live born child.
At 12 weeks, I saw my baby boy on an ultrasound. He could yawn, kick, and even suck his thumb. Only a no vote will prevent healthy babies like mine being aborted for any reason. This is not about abortion in difficult and tragic circumstances. This is about abortion on demand. That's why, on Friday, I'm voting no.
The voices of Aoibhinn Ní Shúilleabháin and Wendy Grace there on why they are voting yes and no, respectively, in the forthcoming referendum. Now, have you decided which way you'll be voting on Friday? With the most recent polls telling us a significant number of voters are still undecided, this so-called once-in-a-generation decision is set to come down to the wire. Now, we have an audience of yes supporters on this side and no supporters on this side here. We'll be talking to some of those very, very shortly. Our panel to advocate for a no no, Maria Steen, barrister and Iona Institute spokesperson, and Independent Senator Ronan Mullen. Advocating for a yes vote, we have Colm O'Gorman, Executive Director of Amnesty Ireland, and Regina Doherty, Minister for Employment Affairs and Social Protection. Now, we will, of course, be timing all yes and no contributions to ensure fairness. I want to talk to our panel, first of all, and I'm wondering, does this not boil down to a very simple proposition? On the no side, you want every single pregnancy, irrespective of the circumstances of its conception, to go to term. And on this side, you want every single pregnancy to be in the gift of the mother to decide whether it goes to term or not, and that to be a free choice up to 12 weeks. Is that a fair analysis of the decision that our voters must make on Friday? Maria?
We think that all babies deserve their chance at life, the same as you or I do or anybody else in this room. And what the government has proposed here is an extreme law, as Wendy said. She talked about the government stripping every right from the Constitution for all unborn children. This is about taking away a right to life in order to make way for a right to kill, and putting the power over life and death into the hands of politicians. So that's what we object to. And what's interesting about this campaign is that, you know, we will hear a lot of talk tonight about the exceptional cases like rape and incest and fatal fetal abnormalities. What is interesting, I think, about this campaign is that while it's made up of people like me who think that every baby deserves their chance and shouldn't be deliberately killed, we have also been joined by pro-choice people who don't agree with me about the exceptional cases, but who recognise that this proposal by the government is a step too far.
Okay, but when you say that, and we will discuss this perhaps in some detail, it is to suggest that if the government had come up with another arrangement, be it constitutional or legislative, which allowed for the hard cases like incest and rape, that you would in some way go along with it. And I'm putting it to you that that is not your position. Your position is your position is every conception is precious.
I've been very honest about my position in this. As I said, I believe every child deserves the right to life. But what I said is I've been joined by other people who don't agree with me.
Maybe so,
on
and we've
every
lots
matter.
of undecided. Maria, the question I'm asking you is that irrespective of the circumstances of conception, you believe,
Pat,
rape,
this isn't
incest,
what I believe. This isn't about what I believe.
It's what I'm asking you.
What this is about is what the Minister, Simon Harris, has put before us.
Okay.
The government that Regina is here to lead,
Minister,
to represent,
it's just too extreme, is what Maria is saying.
A constitutional amendment,
irrespective of whether she would support a different proposition or not. It's just too extreme.
Well, I think the first thing that I'll say is that I don't believe, and I will call out the no vote for the stunt that they've pulled this week insofar as trying to get people to think that if this wasn't as it has been constructed, if it was some other way, if it was just to address the issues of rape or fatal fetal abnormality diagnosis, that then they would be willing to look at it and support it. And the simple fact of the reality is that they haven't been willing to look or support anything in 35 years. What I believe is that the reality in Ireland at the moment is that 3,650 women left this country last year to avail of a termination for their own difficult personal choices. And I think we should be minding those women in Ireland.
But
I think we have a responsibility
aren't
to
they
those
right
women
in one way
in
that
Ireland.
up to 12 weeks, for no reason or any reason, that someone can go for a termination?
It's not, there's no, this
I mean, there
business
may
of
be
women,
good reasons, there may not be good reasons,
there's
but
always
anyone
a reason,
can go for a
Pat.
termination.
There's absolutely always a reason. No woman makes a decision to terminate a pregnancy lightly. There's always a reason. And usually that decision is made having explored all of the other options, because it isn't the easiest or the simplest option, and it isn't made in any callous manner. It's usually the option of last resort. And these are crisis pregnancies. These are women, Irish women, in crisis. And what we're proposing to do is to continue to ignore them if we vote no on Friday, and keep them going, exporting them to the United Kingdom to avail of a service that we agreed in 1992 was okay for them to access.
It's happening, it will continue to happen, irrespective of what happens on Friday. Abortion will happen, perhaps in this jurisdiction. If it's a yes, it'll certainly continue in the UK if it's a no.
Well, I'm afraid that's one of the many issues that the government has ducked a debate on, because what the 8th Amendment has achieved, Pat, is top quality medical care for women in pregnancy on the one hand, impressive rates, low rates of maternal mortality and so on.
Hang on a second, Ronan.
I'm coming to that.
No, just let me clarify something. You are claiming that the insertion of the 8th in 1983 improved obstetrics. Now,
No.
I'm not sure you can make that claim.
I think perhaps the only doctor who's a neutral in this debate, or obstetrician who's been a neutral, is Dr. Mary Holohan, who's a consultant obstetrician in the Rotunda and a former Dean of Professional Competence with the Royal College of Physicians. And she says the medical needs of mothers do not require removal of the 8th Amendment, and she regrets that there appears to be a campaign strategy to plant another idea with the public.
Hang on. It was the claim, sorry, Ronan.
I think that highlights as dangerous what we're hearing from campaigning doctors.
The claim you made that the insertion of the 8th in 1983 in some way improved obstetric care. Now, stand that up or don't.
No, what I have said is the achievement of the 8th has given us top quality care for women, and the bit I was getting onto, which is the issue that I think Regina and the government have dodged, is that Ireland has impressively low abortion rates. Every one of those 3,000 odd abortions is a tragedy. But look at what happens when abortion is legalised. In any country you care to mention, for every 4 children born in Britain, there is one child aborted. That is the consequence
or miscarried,
of not...
Ronan, or miscarried.
No, sorry.
Come on.
No, sorry, Pat, you're wrong on that. It's for every 4 born, 1 is aborted.
Yes.
And that is the same in other countries with laws that the government here is trying to imitate.
Colm O'Gorman, I want to bring you in. Isn't it a good thing, as Ronan suggests, that we have a low abortion rate here? And is it, as sure as night follows day, if the 8th is repealed and legislation is brought in along the lines suggested by the government, that those rates of abortion will increase?
No, it's not. I mean, let's be clear, abortion bans don't stop abortions. That's not just my view, it's not just...
But if you make it easier,
it's not just
up to 12 weeks...
It's not just the view of Amnesty International, it's the view of the World Health Organization, who made that point exactly to the Joint Orthodox Committee on the 8th Amendment when they appeared before it. The 8th Amendment has not stopped abortions. As Regina said earlier on, 9 women will get on flights to the UK today, another 3 to 5 will be taking abortion medication.
But the point I was asking you about is it not
parents.
Inevitable that the number of abortions will increase if you make it easier?
No, it's not. And actually, again, if you look at any of the international evidence, it shows that once you legalise abortion and you put in place the kind of supports around crisis pregnancy, because frankly, crisis pregnancy is the problem, not abortion. Once you put in place supports to address crisis pregnancy, what you see in every jurisdiction is abortion rates going down. Are you saying
that abortions won't increase on the island of Ireland because of this?
I'm saying that the international experience is that in any country where abortion has been legalised, over time, abortion rates went down. I'll give you some examples. Switzerland, I'm happy to share the research. Let me give you some examples. Switzerland, France, Norway, Portugal, Spain, Germany. I can share all of the evidence.
I'm familiar with the WHO research, which shows abortion rates going down.
Yeah.
But that in Britain, for example, they went up, they soared dramatically after the legislation.
And in all the other countries
after
as well,
1967, where we are.
And in all the other countries as well. You know, like Colm mentioned Switzerland, for every 8 babies born, 1 is aborted. That's far more than in Ireland. The standard across countries like Britain and France is for every 4 babies born, 1 is aborted. What's the comparable Irish figure? Well, depending on whether you count the abortion pills that people are talking about, you're talking 1 for every 12 babies born, 1 is aborted. It's quite clear. I mean, the government is suggesting vote for unrestricted abortion, because that's the only way we can give you restricted abortion. That's one insult to people's common sense. Another insult to people's common sense is the claim that if you legalise abortion, you'll actually have less of it. And a third insult to common sense is to claim it's not abortion on demand, and then to say, oh, but for every abortion there is a reason.
Regina, do you want to respond?
Without restriction, and that's a tragedy for our country.
Because we can look at figures from Spain or Portugal or the United Kingdom that the North side keep talking about, or Scotland or Germany or Amsterdam, and we can split hairs over them and we can fight over them, and some might say they've gone up and some might say they've gone down. The actual fact of the reality in Ireland is that in 2013, when we introduced the Protection of Life During Pregnancy Bill, the No side campaigned against it, and they swore blind that the floodgates were going to open and we were going to have thousands of Irish women pretending to be suicidal just to get access to abortion. 25 terminations happened in this country in the last year. 16 of which happened on the basis of emergency, and the remainder happened on the basis of a threat to the life through suicide. It's a tiny number of the 65,000 women that delivered a baby in terms of
I know Ronan
so the scaremongering doesn't work.
I don't know where you stood. I presume the Ireland Institute did campaign against the protection of life and pregnancy,
They did indeed.
but you didn't have a vote. Ronan did have a vote, and he voted against that bill.
Yes, because mental health has no evidence base, and that was pointed out.
Pat,
mental health, sorry, the improvement, of mental health by abortion has been criticised by experts. It is the basis for abortion on demand in Britain.
2 weeks ago,
suicide
Ronan
prevention
Mullins
experts told our committee that this was not the way to go.
You go along with your colleague.
I haven't had a chance to come in.
Mental health is not health, as he said in the week in politics.
No,
is
I
what
did
you
not
said.
say that.
Maria.
I said what has been criticised.
I think that's an
You're
unfair-
misrepresenting me.
I think
What
that
has
is
been
unfair.
criticised by pro-choice experts is the use of mental health as a grounds for abortion, because there is no evidence to show that abortion improves mental health. The evidence, if anything, shows that in some categories of women, mental health risks are associated with abortion. And what they actually said was that in the British context, the evidence clearly poses a challenge to the use of psychiatric reasons to justify abortion. That's what has led to abortion on demand in Britain up to 6 months, and it's what this government wants to imitate in the heads of their bills.
May I remind the parties again that all the contributions on the yes and no side are going to be balanced in terms of time. If you make long speeches, you lose it at the other end of the programme.
If I could just come in
where
there,
is,
Pat. If I could just briefly answer, because I didn't get a chance there. You asked about the 2013 Act. The 2013 Act was brought in to legislate for the X case back in 1992. That was a threat to, a real and substantial threat to a woman's life. Dr. Rona Mahoney on the VT said that she has to wait until a woman is at the point of very seriously at risk of dying. There has been an awful lot of scaremongering during this campaign by the yes side that women are dying, that they have to wait until
I just want to point out that that is
not
no, hang
true.
on, Maria. In fairness, the Protection of Life and Pregnancy Act refers to the danger to the woman of losing her life.
Yes.
It doesn't refer to any danger to health or anything like that.
In
And I
other
think we
words,
all know that.
yes,
so we're not going to linger on
Pat,
that too
in
much.
other words, that's not an issue. Women,
I want to talk to
women
Jennifer.
die.
Where's Jennifer Ryan?
Pat,
Now, Jennifer, do you want to tell us your story?
Yes, I received a diagnosis at 22 weeks. My daughter had no kidneys, she had no fluid surrounding her. Her lungs were never going to develop because she had no fluid, and she had a very severe form of spina bifida. If I continued to term, she would have been crushed within me. And if she were born alive, she'd die in an awful lot of pain because of the severity of her spina bifida.
So what did you do?
We decided to travel to Liverpool and induce our pregnancy there, 24 weeks, and we brought her home on the ferry. And we buried her here in Ireland after a Catholic priest and had a burial and a funeral.
What does the 8th mean to you?
The 8th means that I could not have my daughter in the hospital that I wanted to have her in. I had to leave, and I had to then bring her home on a ferry. None of my, only that we got to do that, we got to bring her home, and not every parent gets to do that. Our families got the chance to meet Jessica, and they got to spend time with her, and so did we, and we've lots of precious photos and mementos from that time. But there's lots of mums and dads that don't get to do that. They have to say goodbye to their babies in the UK, and then they just get ashes home. That's not fair, and it's not right. We need to be looked after here. We need the continuity of care here in Ireland.
OK, where's Vicky? Vicky, your story.
So my daughter Legislating was diagnosed with trisomy 18 in 2014. The doctor suggested that we pop to England for an abortion. My little girl was on the screen. She was kicking, she was moving. She was very much valued and loved. And I made a journey too. I was sent out of that hospital and spent 3.5 hours on a train crying my eyes out in front of strangers. So where was Simon Harris when I made my journey? Where was my compassion? So it's not just Journeys to England. Now, the thing is, what we need to remember, Simon Harris he called my daughter a fatal fetal abnormality. She's not. Her name was Legislating, and she deserved every shot at life. Every shot. And we're not talking about sick babies here.
She was born at 32 weeks, is that
She
right?
was. We're not talking about sick babies here. We're talking about Simon Harris and the Yes campaign using sick babies to legislate for unrestricted abortion up to 12 weeks of healthy babies on healthy mothers.
Jennifer, in reply.
My daughter also had a fatal fetal abnormality. I've never referred to her as a fatal fetal abnormality. She had one. She is my daughter. She is my child. We support women and fathers and men and everyone who continue with the pregnancies also. All we want is that whatever decision you decide here, that you get the continuity of care in Ireland.
Vicky, just go back to you. You made a particular decision which was absolutely right for you and your family. Jennifer made a decision which she felt was right for her and her family.
There is no winners.
Now, hang on, can I just ask you this? In voting no to repealing the 8th, you are saying to Jennifer, you can't make your decision, but I can still make mine.
No, I'm not. I didn't choose my daughter to be sick. I have had the vilest abuse from the Yes campaign over my daughter. Horrible things said
But can I
about
just
her.
ask you that,
Yes,
that you
I
still,
have. No, I'm
making the
not.
decision that you made, you will
because
still be free to make that same decision should the 8th remain,
There's no
whereas
winners.
Jennifer would not be free to make the decision that she would like to
for
make.
me or Jennifer. Me and Jennifer don't have our very much wanted babies, but that's not what this legislation is about. This legislation is not about sick babies or women that have been forced into pregnancy. It's about healthy babies and healthy mothers,
Okay.
unrestricted up to 12 weeks.
And Colin.
First of all, can I acknowledge the stories of the two women, and just to say how sorry I am for both of their losses and for any other mother that's in the audience today that has lost their baby. This isn't about one particular group or another. This is about addressing the reality of the situation in Ireland, that Irish women in crisis are being forced to leave their own homes, not being able to stay with their own families and the support network that they have, and being forced to go to Liverpool or to Manchester or to London to avail of a termination, which is a last resort for them. And I actually think it's time that in 2018 that we actually showed the women of this country the dignity and the respect and the understanding that they deserve. We deserve it. For too long, for generations in this country, women have been maligned and shamed for a variety of reasons.
Okay, Colin, Colin, we're going. I'll come to Marie in a moment. Yes, Colin. Colin?
I just want to add my support to what Regina said. I mean, for any woman to face a diagnosis like this is catastrophic. It's appalling that they should have to endure that kind of suffering. But the key...
Colin,
the
your
key,
canvassers were out on the street.
If I can finish?
No, Colin, your
Sorry, Pat,
canvassers
I need
made
to be
me
able to finish.
cry out on the street, saying that babies with fatal fetal abnormalities were dead inside the mothers and that bits of them were hanging off and they were vile. And they were your canvassers. So what do you say to that? How are they trained?
So, first of all, they weren't canvassers. They were actually young people who were working as fundraisers, and they said things that, quite frankly, they were told they shouldn't say. And we're addressing that, and it's not acceptable.
It's absolutely not acceptable. It's misleading people.
If I can...
Apologise to her for what they did.
So, Pat,
Yeah, no,
we're not going to get very far if I can't finish a point.
I told you earlier on that we are monitoring the time. And at the moment, the no side are way ahead on time. So that's why I was giving Colin a good run. But I will ask Maria to respond before we go to a break.
We haven't been able to respond at all yet because I constantly get interrupted by the no side. So what I was trying to say is what's utterly unacceptable in my view, and we've met with and we've talked with Jennifer and others from Termination for Medical Reasons. I remember Amy Walsh talking to us about her experience of travelling to Liverpool, and she described how they were wrapped in a blanket of compassion and care. As an Irish man, I want us to be doing that here. And these are not hard cases. These are women, these are men, these are their lives, these are their families. We have to address those circumstances and all of the circumstances within which people might face crisis pregnancies where they feel that they can't continue with the pregnancy. And we need to get to that point. And unless we repeal the 8th Amendment, let's be really, really clear, there is no possibility of legislating for access to termination of pregnancy on the basis of a fatal fetal abnormality unless we repeal the 8th.
Maria, the blanket of compassion that was wrapped around people in Liverpool is not available here.
We've been told, and Regina said there about, that this is for women, this is a women's issue. There are tens of thousands of women in this country who are voting no, along with their sisters, their daughters, their cousins, their friends, because, like many people, we recognise that the whole point of having fundamental rights in a constitution is to protect individuals and vulnerable minorities, like children with disabilities, from having their rights taken away by a legislative power, by politicians like Regina. I didn't interrupt you, Colin.
No.
Politicians like Regina, who have been on journeys, who started off saying they're pro-life, and who've now come to a point where they're enthusiastically willing to support abortion on demand, which is what the government has proposed.
We will come back to the whole question of abortion on demand.
So this is not...
This is not... alternatives might have been...
I wanted to, if I could just finish, Pat, what I wanted to say...
Look, Maria,
like
do you want to be silent in part 3? Because that will be the consequence of going on and on and on.
I just want to say...
Now, with both sides targeting swing male voters in the final weeks of the campaign, we'll be hearing from pianist Frank McNamara and writer Michael Harding, and we'll also be continuing our discussion after this break.
It upsets me when I hear men saying that this is just a woman's issue. That's the same abdication of responsibility as when a man abandons a girl he's got pregnant. This is a human rights issue. We're all involved. Our government is asking us to remove a fundamental human right from our constitution. When has that ever happened? Never. They say we already have abortion in Ireland, you just have to travel to get it. And that is a shame on all of us, a shame on successive governments that those mothers felt they had no other option. Ending the life of a baby is a very permanent solution for what might be just a temporary crisis. People say that we have backstreet abortion in Ireland, the abortion pill purchased over the internet. But what they don't tell you is that in the UK, where abortion is legal, there is a massive problem of a huge number of expectant mothers buying that very same pill illegally. So legalising abortion here is not a solution to that problem. The hard cases, horrific though they are being rolled out all the time, but we are not being asked to vote for these exceptional cases on Friday. We are being asked to allow unrestricted access to abortion for up to 12 weeks for no cause. When you strip away the clever spin and the petty distractions and get to the truth, there really is just one possible conclusion. Vote no.
The referendum is not a theological matter. Strictly speaking, it's not about abortion per se. It's about whether the Eighth Amendment works as it was intended. And it doesn't. I'm pro-life. I believe in the sacredness of life. But here's the truth. You cannot enforce the love of God with the sword of Caesar. It doesn't work. Jesus was blue in the face trying to explain that. When the crowd wanted to stone a woman to death because they claimed she had committed a grave sin, Jesus said, okay, let someone who has never done anything wrong in their entire life cast the first stone. And immediately the crowd dissolved. Is there no one to condemn you? He wondered. Apparently not, the woman replied. Well, I don't condemn you either, Jesus said. I don't believe that Jesus wants us to parse the love, the immeasurable mercy of God like we're lawyers. I believe he pleads with us not to put ourselves as judges and jury over someone else's conscience. Judge not, Jesus said, and you will not be judged. That's why I'm voting yes.
Frank McNamara and Michael Harding there. Ronan, judge and jury, is that what you're setting yourself up to be?
Gosh, hopefully not. I think, people of all faiths and none would be united in not ever wanting to judge anybody in these situations. But I think the judgment to be exercised is, do we love mothers and unborn babies? We need to remember the government is proposing something that will mean that thousands of unborn children in the future will die who would not otherwise have died. That is not a compassionate solution. There's a wonderful woman in the audience here tonight called Adi Stack, who founded an institution called Hughes House, which cares for parents of children with life-limiting conditions diagnosed. And I think it's Adi that said recently that, whether you live for 100 seconds or 100 years, we can do better than abortion by giving you a country fit to welcome you.
Regina, it's going too far. What Ronan is saying is that the 8th will make sure that children will be born who might not otherwise be born.
Well, the first thing I'd have to say is that I would assume, even though I was very small when the 8th Amendment was entered into the Constitution, that the people who put it in, I hope, had good intentions. But the absolute unintended consequences of the 8th have been described in detail by many people here and many people over the last number of weeks with regard to the stories and experiences that they've had because of it. But Ronan will tell you and have conversations with you, in the absence of acknowledging the reality of the situation in Ireland, that there are already 3,650 Irish women in crisis pregnancies that were forced to travel in 2016, which is the last year we have data for. He wants to pretend that this is something new. It's like as if that if we introduced it on Friday or Saturday, if people voted yes on Saturday, that Ireland was going to change. And I can categorically tell you that the only thing that will happen if we vote yes on Friday is that Ireland will show that we actually are compassionate towards women in crisis pregnancies, and that we won't force them to leave their country and export them to the United Kingdom.
The two views we have there, but what the Minister is saying is it's happening, it will continue to happen, irrespective of the result. So what's to be done?
Well, nobody here is denying reality. As we've said, the numbers of women who are having abortions from Ireland is significantly lower than in other European countries. The government can't have it both ways. They can't say, like Josepha Madigan said, she wants to bring Irish law into line with 21 other European countries, and then say that the results, the high level of abortion that results in those countries won't happen here. That is not facing reality by saying that. Now, you mentioned about being judge and jury. We all become lawmakers on Friday. And what the government is asking us to do is to become judge and jury over the lives of countless babies as yet unborn, generations yet unborn. And what I would like to ask is, what has the child in the womb done wrong to warrant a death sentence for no reason, for no justification, and with no advocate to plead his cause?
Colm and Regina, yes.
So just again, first of all, the Eighth Amendment has not stopped abortions. It has stopped some abortions, and by doing so it has forced women who would not want to continue with pregnancies for a wide range of reasons, whether because they have significant and serious health problems that mean that they can't travel, that they have disabilities, that they're women living in poverty, that they're migrant women who don't have a status that allows them to travel. It's forced them to continue with pregnancies, regardless of the impact, the harm that that might do to their lives and their health and their families. For other women from Ireland, they travel. They go to the UK. The Eighth Amendment has failed to stop abortions. It has not worked. And the question that we need to answer now is, do we want to take responsibility for providing compassionate healthcare? And despite what was said in the VT, abortion care is healthcare. Again, the World Health Organization are clear about that. Do we want to care for women at home, or do we want to continue to judge, dismiss and exile them, regardless of the impact on them and on their families? Maria?
What kind of healthcare deliberately and intentionally kills a child? Because that is Simon Harris's wording. And can I just say, we haven't really discussed the bill that Simon Harris put before us to illustrate what he plans to bring in if people vote repeal.
So let's discuss the bill. Let's discuss the bill of what's actually going to be in law after Friday if people vote yes.
The no side are absolutely obscuring for me what Maria is saying, so please,
The
Maria.
definition of termination of pregnancy, it was the yes side, I think, actually clapping. The definition of termination of pregnancy is the medical procedure intended to bring the end to the life of the fetus, intended to end the life of the fetus.
Because that's what an abortion is,
No,
Maria.
not at the moment, Regina.
No, that's what an abortion is, Maria. And there's nobody trying to hide
Regina,
the fact
I didn't interrupt you.
or dress it up.
Regina, I didn't interrupt you.
Evening. Nobody is trying to
Regina,
hide the fact that we're pretending this is something other than what it is.
At the moment.
The reality is that there are over 3,600 Irish women choosing to terminate their pregnancies.
At the moment.
Very inside.
Can we all agree that the termination of pregnancy is a termination? If the fetus is dead in the womb, it is not a termination by definition. No, so let's not argue about it. We all agree in this room that a termination means the end of a pregnancy.
This is very important. At the moment, in Irish hospitals, pregnancies, and under the 2013 Act, pregnancies are sometimes terminated in order to save the woman's life by delivering the baby, and all efforts are made to save the baby. But Regina's colleague, Simon Harris, is proposing that we change that definition to the intentional destruction where the baby's actually targeted.
Regina.
Now, I can understand, sorry, one tiny thing. I can understand how trying to save a woman's life, you would deliver a baby early. I can't understand why you directly kill the child.
Why did you campaign against the 2013 legislation? The Ione Institute absolutely did. David Quinn came in front of our committee. You campaigned fiercely against the 2013 legislation. You campaigned twice against removing the suicide clause from the Constitution. You campaigned against women's rights, children's rights. You campaigned against divorce. You've campaigned against everything in this country since I've been born. Is enough.
Just briefly.
We have to recognise the reality of what's going on in this country with regard to the difficult choices that Irish women are making, and you're quite happy to send them to the UK. It's not good enough.
we have to occasionally call out, I think, some of the very distorted thinking that comes from the no side in this. You seem to be suggesting, Maria, that ending a pregnancy by induced delivery before viability is not an abortion.
No, and can I tell you this?
Sorry, let me,
the women who had life-saving treatment
Maria,
would be greatly offended,
I would
Colin,
love
by you saying that they had
to
an
be able to
abortion.
finish a point without you or the no side shouting me
life-saving
down.
treatment is not an abortion.
So I would love to be able to finish a point without you or the no side
well,
shouting me down.
I would too, but Regina kept interrupting me.
So a termination of pregnancy by early induction, pre-viability, is not an abortion.
Not if it's to save the woman's life.
So that's what the abortion pill does. It induces early delivery of a pregnancy pre-viability.
No.
It is an abortion. I mean, now who's living in Cloud Cuckoo Land?
Where's Gavin?
that's really
Where's
offensive to the women who
I
had
want to get your
life-saving
story,
treatment.
please.
My name's Gavin, I'm 20 years old and I'm a student and I'll be voting no. My mother was 15 when she fell pregnant with me and 16 giving birth to me. However, when she was 15, she was sent to England to have me aborted. She was very young. My conception was the result of a one-night stand. My father wasn't going to be around, and so my grandparents decided the best thing to do would be to send her to England. Now, obviously, I'm here tonight, and that is because my grandparents were deliberating this, and they asked one very important question, and that was, why can't we get this done here? Why is abortion illegal? And what they found was the 8th Amendment, and that indiscriminately gives every single unborn child the right to life. It acknowledges their humanity. And it was in recognition of this that my grandparents acknowledged that I was a unique human being with value, and so they couldn't go ahead with it. I'm alive today because of the 8th Amendment, despite what Colin might think.
Okay, where is Saoirse? You actually had...
Gavin very briefly? I could just respond to Gavin very briefly?
No, I'll come back to you in a moment. I want to talk to my audience. Saoirse. Saoirse. We'll come to you in a moment. Saoirse.
By the 8th Amendment.
Saoirse.
I have been named Saoirse, which means freedom in English, which I was denied in this country. Sorry, this is quite hard to talk about. So you talk about hard cases. I'm a real case. I was one of those 9 women that go to the UK every single day, that still go to the UK every single day, that are forced abroad to get proper health care. Walking around Birmingham for 6 hours with a hot water bottle against me, alone, walking around a country and a city that I don't know, waiting for a plane home again. Because I was forced out of this country. I was in a crisis pregnancy like so many other women are. No support here whatsoever from doctors or anything else. No help whatsoever. I thought long and hard, and when I hear about social abortion and abortion on demand, it is gravely, 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 I can't even get the words out. It is so wrong and so insulting. I thought long and hard about what I did and the decision that I made, and I made the right decision for me, and I should have been looked after in my own country.
Ronan.
Saoirse, you deserve love and respect regardless of what you've ever done. But can I just say, there are thousands of people alive because of the 8th Amendment. Saoirse, your story deserves to be listened to and respected, same as any other human beings. Mary Kenny is a single mother whose daughter Holly is alive, Mary says, because of the 8th Amendment. She says, the time it took me to arrange an abortion in England is the time I needed to change my mind. Can we not ask for a minute, why is it that Ireland has so few abortions compared with countries where abortions are legal?
Ronan,
it is because our law
I have to
protects.
interrupt you here just for time reasons.
Please, yeah.
But Regina, he talks about change of mind time. That is something that you have introduced. 72 hours, is that the...
Yeah, there's a pause period within the first 12 weeks so that a woman can go to her GP in crisis and to be able to be trusted, respected in a non-judgmental medical setting.
And where will you get the time with the GP to get that kind of therapy and advice and counselling?
They're already doing it, in fairness, Pat, because our young women are going to their GPs in the first instance looking for help.
And
I think the doctors that were on a programme last Friday said that if all of the women...
Regina? If it's just healthcare,
is there absolutely any way that you could let somebody else speak for 2 minutes? Just for 2 minutes. Would that be okay? Can I
say, Pat,
if it's just healthcare, why is there a pause period?
look, we may as well just go home and let the no side talk to
Look,
people, because
we
that's
are
what they're intent
counting
on
the
doing.
minutes and the seconds, so it will come home to roost in part 3 if it keeps going on like
The
this.
72-hour period will allow the doctor and the woman to discuss what options are available. And those options may be pursuing different options other than
All
a
right,
termination.
and we want to talk about other things in part 3.
Also,
but I want to go to you. You wanted to say something to Gavin.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that to Gavin, and actually to any of us who are here today. We're here because our mothers made choices. Our mothers either chose to get pregnant or to continue with the pregnancy. Similarly, your mother was sent to the UK. Her and her parents at the time, who seemed to make the decision for her, chose for her to continue with that pregnancy. That's true for every one of us, and that's a good thing. She made a choice that was right for her. That's what we're asking for people to do. And in terms of Saoirse's point, I mean, Saoirse's case demonstrates a really important point here. The language that's used around notion of social abortion. Let's be clear what social means. Social means health. Social means domestic violence. Social means marginalisation.
Okay.
Social means living in poverty.
We have to pause.
It's why, Pat, this is an equality issue. Until women are free to make decisions about their lives, their bodies and their health,
on that
they
point,
will never...
We will take a break and we'll have more after this. Welcome back. Lots of people from different professions in our audience. A couple of GPs here. Mary, what do you want to say?
I'm with Doctors Together for Yes, and I'm asking people to vote yes on Friday because as GPs we provide continuity of care, cradle to the grave. But with the 8th Amendment impacts that as soon as a woman's in a crisis pregnancy, you stop. You effectively open the door and say, come in. Because look at Saoirse's situation. Nobody could provide her health care. That is not good health care. And the reality is abortion is actually common. It's the most common gynecological procedure an Irish woman will have. And I want to come back to the issue of evidence. And as doctors, we really rely on evidence, and it's about mental health. I have to say, it really alarmed me that we were hearing mental health bandied around like this. We've just had people walking through the night to support mental health in this country. The Royal Colleges of the UK, the obstetricians, the psychiatrists and the GPs, in 2016 reviewed 8,000 pieces of literature and said there isn't a mental health harm from abortion.
OK, I want to leave it there. Brendan, you're
facts.
a GP as well.
I'm advocating a no vote, Pat. The referendum on Friday is about removing all human rights from all unborn babies in this country and the government's proposals to deliberately end those lives. I think what I want to be crystal clear on is that deliberately ending the life of innocent children is not medicine. It is not healthcare whatsoever. I became a doctor to heal, with the aim of healing, not harming, and certainly not ending a life. And I think what we need to remember here is that when we talk about clearly it's ending the life of an unborn child, there is no evidence whatsoever that an abortion is therapeutic for a woman on a mental health grounds.
Anne, tell me your story.
Yes, when I was 21 years of age, which is 48 years ago, I had an abortion in England. I had to go there on my own, frightened, the same as the young woman said. I've remained silent since, through intimidation, condemnation and an atmosphere where you're shamed.
You believe there are many people like you who have said nothing about this?
Absolutely. And it was a very difficult time then, very difficult to get information. But I do want to sort of say that when I came back to Ireland, I worked in England after that. I came back to Ireland as a trained nurse and I campaigned for healthcare, for contraception, for sex education, for support. I worked as a teacher later, for support in education, social services and all of those. And not once did I come across the people from the no side campaigning on those issues. So I think our women deserve not to be pushed into Magdalene laundries or now shoved off to England. They deserve the right and the dignity of a future and to be looked after.
Anya Ryan, on the no side. Yes, Anya.
Hiya, Pat. I suffered with severe prenatal depression during my pregnancies, and so much so to the extent that my doctors felt it was detrimental that I stay under the mental health care system. Now, I think we can all agree that women who have abortions, and as the pro-choice often say, no one wants an abortion. So it's a desperate situation that leads a woman to have an abortion. And an awful lot of the time, you're campaigning for that right for that woman in that desperate situation to have that abortion, but you're not actually doing anything about the situation. And my point is, in 97% of cases over in the UK, abortion is done underground sea. I almost took my life.
Okay.
No, let me finish.
We're literally...
Can I please finish my point?
You've
Because
got
you've
10
let
seconds.
Saoirse and you've let the yes side really run this, as far as I can see, Pat.
No. Enough of this.
Pat, can I just
we
finish
we
my
are
point?
balancing the time as best we can.
Okay, but I
If
make
you
my-
go on, you
my
take the time
question.
from
Can I just
Maria
ask Ben my question?
and from Ronan.
Can I ask Ben my question?
We conclude this debate with a minute to each of you. Now, we'll start with Ronan.
There's a coalition here between people who believe an unborn baby should always be protected while always protecting top medical care for women in pregnancy, and people who would support abortion in some cases but who will not vote for 12 weeks unrestricted. 12 weeks unrestricted means abortions, not just in GP surgery, 40% of abortions up to 12 weeks take place, they're surgical. So we're looking at abortion clinics. This hasn't even been discussed. We have a situation where late-term abortions will be done. I was at the committee. I heard a British doctor talk about doing an abortion at 23 weeks. One injection to paralyse the baby and another into the heart to end that child's life. This is not healthcare. It is not compassion.
And
we can do so much more
Ronan,
for
it's
women
not
by
proposed
promoting
here.
alternatives.
It is not proposed
yes, it
here.
is, and I'll show you the head, Pat. It's head 5, Pat.
No.
So first of all, mental health and mental ill health.
4.1b says that there can be, unless if the baby is viable, it is allowed to give birth. At 23 weeks, you know that is the case. No, we have to get the facts straight. Colin.
You haven't got your facts straight.
First of all, mental ill health in pregnancy is real. The maternal death inquiry here confirms that suicide is now the leading cause of death of both direct and indirect maternal deaths in Ireland. Mental health is real, it is serious, and we are obliged to deal with it. And the minimising of the phenomenon of mental health issues in pregnancy by the no side in this campaign is scurrilous.
No.
Okay.
In relation to Ground C in the UK, this cannot be said often enough because there's huge misleading information about this. There is no access upon request in early pregnancy in the UK, so Ground C is the alternative to that. Women who need to access termination of pregnancy for a range of reasons,
And
to
they
do with
use
health, to
Ground
do
C,
with rape.
and we are
Ground C
aware
is
of that,
effectively
and
the on-request
a
model.
lot of
That
people
will not
are-
happen here
are
because we
using
have an
that
on-request
ground,
model.
and it's not a genuine ground. We know that.
Well, we don't
Maria.
know that.
Maria.
Women who need their mental health attended to and looked after and cared for and supported deserve better than to have the life of their child ended as a solution to it. Head 5 and 6 of the bill that Simon Harris proposes allows abortion without gestational limits up until birth. In the case of an emergency situation where there's a risk of serious harm to the mental health of the mother, we think women in those situations deserve better than an abortion. It also allows for children to be killed where there is a likelihood that they might die before birth or shortly after. That is nowhere near approaching certainty, no more than a coin toss. 50% is the difference in the balancing of the law, whether a child whether a doctor can lawfully abort a child. We think this is a step too far. There is a coalition on the no side of people from all different backgrounds, and we all think that taking away the rights of all unborn children is fundamentally unjust.
Minister.
Thanks, Pat. Maria sarcastically said a couple of minutes ago that I'm pro-life and that I've gone on a journey. I am pro-life. I have 4 beautiful children, and all of them are alive, and it's got nothing to do with the 8th Amendment. They were much wanted and much loved and still are. And that's true for the vast majority of people in this country. But for a small number of women, there are crisis pregnancies. There always has been crisis pregnancies. And I'd love those people at home who are pro-life to actually consider how we intend to treat those women after Saturday. Do we want to treat them with the dignity, the respect, the care, the compassion that they deserve in their own country, by their own GPs, their own doctors, and their own peers? Because for years we've shamed women. We've shamed them because they had babies. We've shamed them because they haven't had babies. It has to stop. Irish women deserve to be treated fairly and at home. And it's time those 3,650 women were allowed to be treated in their own home and shown the dignity of the respect of the decisions
Minister,
that they make that are personal.
We have to leave it there. Before we go, we're going to check in with Matt and Ivan. They're in Studio 1. They will be continuing the debate in the next hour.
Thank you very much, Pat. That was a fascinating debate. But stay tuned, because we'll have the very final TV debate of this referendum campaign in just a few moments' time.
With us here in Studio 1, Fianna Fáil leader Micheál Martin, Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou MacDonald, businessman and no campaigner Declan Ganley, and barrister and communications consultant Theresa Lowe.
Stay tuned for that. Matt and Ivan coming up in just a few moments. I want to thank our panel, I want to thank our audience, and I want to thank you at home for watching us tonight. From all of us here in studio, good night.